This is the David Feldman Radio Network.
Joining us is our resident film critic, Michael Snyder. He will be talking about the following films: Star Wars, Son of Saul, The Big Short, and Macbeth. Star Wars opens today. How is it?
Well, it actually opened for me a week ago because I had the good fortune to catch it as an advanced screening. And of course, there was heavy security. There were people glowering at us and many, many wristbands to get into the actual screening. And guess what? It is, in fact, the best of the Star Wars movies since The Empire Strikes Back, which was the second released. And if you're thinking chronologically, when you look at the prequels and what have you, it was the fifth of the films. And this is the seventh, Episode 7, The Force Awakens. And it is under the purview now of J.J. Abrams, who appears to be Hollywood's go-to outer space franchise guy now, having revitalized Star Trek with kind of a reboot that he did a few years back, followed, by the way, by a kind of half-ass sequel to that. He has taken the reins from George Lucas, and his company Bad Robot is even listed in it's the shingle before the movie actually starts. It says a Bad Robot production, although, of course, Lucasfilm gets the big fancy logo at the top. And it is rather good. And I'm wondering, why is it so good? Why am I enjoying this so well? Is it just the return of a admittedly more elderly Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford, Princess Leia, played by Carrie Fisher, and Luke Skywalker, played by Mark Hamill? Is it that? No. What it is Lucas not only didn't direct, he didn't have anything to do with the script. The script is the work of J.J. Abrams, but I think primarily it's so entertaining and charming and witty and clever and properly plotted because Lawrence Kasdan was a major force in writing the script, as was Michael Arndt, who was responsible for Little Miss Sunshine. Now, Kasdan is the guy who wrote one of the greatest Hollywood scripts ever, Raiders of the Lost Ark. He also wrote what is not, generally considered the best of the Star Wars movies, which is Empire Strikes Back. And he's in the mix here. And I have to tell you, it introduces new characters. It catches up with familiar ones like the ones we already mentioned years down the line. And because they've all gotten older, and because this is set the exact same number of years after they actually completed their last Star Wars movie, there's a real vitality and resonance and continuity going on here. And admittedly, this movie, without any spoilers, this movie does parallel in a lot of ways the first film that was ever released, which was, again, chronologically Episode 4, A New Hope, where we first meet Han Solo, Luke, and Leia. And that's not a problem. The supporting actors and the new actors, all good. I have to point out John Boyega, who is an Afro-Brit actor who was one of the stars of the incredibly clever science fiction film Attack the Block, which is about aliens invading a poor council block in London and meeting a bunch of gang members that give them more than they bargained for. He's in here as a stormtrooper who decides he doesn't want to lead that life, doesn't want to be a part of the Empire's return in what they call the First Order, and gives it all up and goes on the run. Daisy Ridley plays a young woman who's a scavenger named Ray, who ends up being embroiled in all of this. And Adam Driver, who most people know as the boyfriend of Lena Dunham's character on Girls, he plays basically the big bad, who is this horrible kind of Darth Vader wannabe by the name of Kylo Ren. Plus, you get a guy who's been in every movie this year, it seems like, Domhnall Gleeson, as a kind of new general in the, I guess we'd call it, the return of the Empire.
Are there any important themes addressed in this movie?
Well, yeah.
That might be relevant to, let's say, the election coming up.
Well, clearly, Donald Trump is again this generation's Darth Vader. No, you can reflect anything you want into this. You can look at it and read any political allegory you like, but it's basically about freedom versus oppression. So in that regard, maybe you have something. But the effects are pretty fine. It moves along. Like I said, there's a lot of wit. Harrison Ford is so charismatic and entertaining, and this was one of his greatest film roles, one of his earliest as well. And though he's great, as has his Wookiee companion Chewbacca, yeah, there's a little gray on that fur. He still brings it. Come on, this is years later.
Did they really put gray on it?
Yeah, a little bit. Chewbacca's gray at the temples.
Okay.
I tell you what, I really enjoyed it. That's all I'll say.
Great. Okay. Son of Saul.
Son of Saul is the exact antithesis of this. Instead of fantasy, it is the horrible and harsh reality of life in Auschwitz in 1944, wherein we meet Saul, who was a Hungarian prisoner, who is part of what they call the Snyder Commandos, which is he's a Jew that has been tasked by his Nazi captors to basically shepherd new Jewish arrivals to the concentration camp to their deaths. And it is, you think about previous films that dealt with concentration camp life, like Life is Beautiful, Roberto Benigni's strange mixture of warmth, whimsy, and horror. And, that, of course, seems ridiculous now by comparison. This is close in. It's shot in a film aspect ratio that's more like a square old-time movie ratio, black and white, and incredibly visceral, incredibly brutal, and in the circumstance when he's like trying to deal with getting these people, bringing them to their deaths, he tries to help this boy that is kind of a survivor of the gas, and the scientists and the Nazi medicos want to work on him and see why, and he's trying basically to save the kid, and it's powerful stuff.
Okay.
Again, it's not fun. Laszlo Nemes is the guy who wrote and directed it. It is a Hungarian film, but man, high marks, and
we're running out of time. Very
brutal.
Quickly. Let's get to The Big Short and Macbeth very quickly.
Sure. The Big Short is basically my favorite film of the year.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that Adam McKay, who directed the Anchorman movies and other silly Will Ferrell comedies, is behind this incredibly fascinating movie about the prescient but derided brokers and speculators who predicted the housing, mortgage, and banking crisis that triggered the 2008 recession. But this is a crackling, what do you call it, a docu-comedy? Inspired script, peppered with wit, note-perfect casting, standout work from Christian Bale, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, and Brad Pitt, and great cameos. And the most educational film about this that you could ever imagine.
Absolutely. Nobody understands how we got into this mess, and they do a magnificent job explaining it. Macbeth. I saw Macbeth. I have to say it's beautiful. It's stunning. I couldn't understand a single word they were saying.
Well, come on, they're speaking the king's English, and the king, of course, is Macbeth, who was actually a Thane, and he becomes the king by killing his own king, King Duncan, and, of course, another fantastic performance by Michael Fassbender as Macbeth, and as Lady Macbeth, knocking it out of the park, Marianne Cotillard. I don't think she's gotten enough recognition for a great performance of the ambitious Lady Macbeth, directed by Justin Kurzel. Look, shot out there in the wilderness, like in the Highlands.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to look at, but not enough Shakespeare.
Yeah, they did cut it out here and there. No double toil and trouble, and that's it. That's it, man.
That's insane. That's insane.
That's basically kind of quasi funny.
All right, Michael Snyder is our resident film critic. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you, sir.
The David Feldman radio program is made possible by listeners like you. You sad, pathetic humps.